A set continuation of the Lotus Method video scripture, and here's what I want you to really understand. This isn't about perfection. The lotus doesn't bloom because it avoided the mud. It blooms because of the mud, the murk, the pressure, the darkness. That's what forces it to reach toward the light. You see, most people make the mistake of waiting for their circumstances to clean up before they start. I'll get disciplined when things calm down. I'll start my routine after this busy season ends. But life doesn't work that way. The mud never really goes away, it just changes form. I've worked with people who've applied this method in the middle of divorces, financial ruin, health crises, soul-crushing jobs. And you know what? Those are the ones where the Lotus Method took root deepest. Because when you're in the mud, you have a choice. You can sink or you can grow. Let me tell you about Marcos. He came to me 2 years ago, couldn't hold a routine for more than 3 days. Felt like a failure every time he saw those perfect morning routines online. He started with cleaning, not his schedule, his room. Threw out garbage that had been sitting for months, unfollowed accounts that made him feel small, turned off notifications, then organization, just 3 priorities a day written on a sticky note. Nothing fancy, training, 10 minutes of movement every morning, just 10. Unity. He asked himself one question: who do I actually want to be? Not what he should want, what he actually deep down wanted. And silence. 5 minutes of sitting with himself before touching his phone. Today, Marcos runs his own business. Wakes up at 5:30 without an alarm. Not because he's special. Because he stopped trying to escape the mud and started growing through it. This is the part they don't show you on social media. The before photos aren't pretty. The process isn't aesthetic. There's no cinematic lighting when you're choosing to study instead of scrolling. No one claps when you pick the vegetable over the processed sugar. No one sees when you journal instead of binge watching. But something happens in those invisible moments. Something that cannot be faked or filmed. You start to trust yourself again. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, just one, you deposit trust into your own bank account. And after enough deposits, you stop needing motivation. You stop needing external pressure. You move because moving is who you are. The neuroscientists have a name for this. It's called synaptic pruning. Your brain literally cuts away the connections that belong to your old self and strengthens the ones that belong to who you're becoming. You're not just changing habits, you're changing neurology. And this is why the Lotus Method works when everything else fails. Because it doesn't fight human nature. It works with it. Cleaning removes the triggers that activate your impulse center. Organization reduces the mental load that exhausts your prefrontal cortex. Training builds the dopamine pathways that make discipline feel good. Unity engages the default mode network, the part of your brain that processes identity and meaning. And silence. Silence activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode where real integration happens. You're not weak. You've just been fighting your own biology with willpower alone, and willpower alone always loses, always. But here's the beautiful irony. When you stop relying on willpower and start relying on the method, willpower magically appears. Not because you forced it, because you created the conditions for it to grow naturally. Think about a garden. You don't yell at tomatoes to grow faster. You don't guilt-trip the soil. You prepare the ground. You remove the weeds. You water consistently. You give it sunlight. And then, almost magically, growth happens on its own. The Lotus Method is your gardening tools. Now, I want you to do something uncomfortable. Right now, pause this video, just for 30 seconds. Close your eyes if you're somewhere you can, and ask yourself, where in my life am I trying to force growth instead of preparing soil? A brief pause of welcome back. Whatever came up for you, that's your starting point. Not where you think you should start, where the mud actually is. Because here's the trap. Most personal development advice tells you to aim for the stars, dream bigger, reach higher. But if you're standing in mud, reaching for the stars just makes you lose your balance. First, you need solid ground, then you reach. The lotus doesn't stretch toward the sun while its roots are loose. It anchors first deep, into the mud. That anchor is what allows it to rise. So let me ask you directly, not theoretically, actually. What distractions do you need to remove this week? Not eventually. This week. What one area of your life, if organized, would create the most relief? What small, difficult thing could you do today that your future self would thank you for? What part of your identity are you currently betraying with your actions? And when was the last time you sat in complete silence, no phone, no music, no talking, just you and your own thoughts? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the method, they're the map. And the answers? The answers are your path out of the mud. I'll leave you with this. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the known world while sleeping on the ground in military campaigns, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The mud is not your enemy, it's your raw material, your fertilizer, your foundation. The question isn't whether you'll escape the mud. The question is what you'll become because of it. See you in the next video.